I know how frustrated you are right now. You have something that's worth saying. You have expertise that is worth sharing. You have a message that could genuinely help people. And somewhere in your mind, you know that showing up on camera is one of the most powerful things you could do for your business, for your brand, for your career. But every time you sit down to record, something happens. You freeze, you ramble, you watch it back and cringe and delete it. Or worse, you never even hit record in the first place. And here's what really grills my cheese about this. It's not a gear problem, it's not a lighting problem, it's not even a confidence problem in the way most people think about it. Most people who struggle on camera are not lacking talent, they're certainly not lacking intelligence, or even charisma. They are stuck in one of these very specific phases of the camera confidence journey. And they don't know which one they are in, or even if they exist, and what it actually takes to move through it. I have experienced it time and time again with 15 years of on-camera direction and global media production. What separates the people who show up with clarity and conviction from those who stay stuck is not talent, it is understanding which of these three phases they are in. By the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly where you are, exactly why you are stuck, and exactly what you need to do next to build real momentum toward unwavering camera confidence. Let's get into it. Before I break down the three phases, I want to cover something that you will never hear from other camera confidence content. None of this has anything to do with the camera. Not really. The camera is just a proxy. I've worked with thousands of high-performing professionals over 15 years. That's physicians, surgeons, founders, executives, creators. And what I've seen over and over again is that even some of the most gifted experts, speakers, who have exceptional interpersonal skills and communication capabilities struggle on camera. Especially those who are just beginning to leverage platforms like YouTube and creator-led marketing so that they can begin to build their personal brand. Because honestly, if you want to build a future for yourself in this landscape of digital marketing, showing up on video is not optional. For naturally extroverted communicators, the learning curve is shorter. Building their camera confidence becomes more of a shift in perspective and mechanical adjustment, easily corrected with the right coaching. But for those of us who were not given the gift of natural oratory or the innate temperament of extroversion, it's a much steeper and more daunting climb. Here's the reality. The camera is a magnifier of who you already are. The person who is petrified on camera may also hesitate to speak up in meetings. The person who overprepares every video script also catastrophizes conversations that they are afraid to have. The person who deletes every take before anyone sees it also holds back their best ideas because they're terrified of the perceived judgment. I understand how hard it can be. I have been there. This does not apply only to being on camera. This affects everything. So many people convince themselves that with the next piece of gear, the next right prompt, or once they complete yet another course, then they're gonna feel ready to get started. Or that once they solve the technical problems of better lighting, more professional setup, they're finally going to feel confident. I'm inviting you to consider something different today. What if the camera is not the obstacle, but the mirror? What if it is simply revealing something that was already there? And what if moving through these three phases does not just make you better on camera, but makes you more confident across multiple domains of your life? I've seen it happen again and again. Now let's talk about these three phases to camera confidence. The journey from anxious to authoritative. The first phase of camera confidence is exposure. And the first thing most people think of when they hear that word is exposing yourself, where you're putting yourself and your content out there to be exposed for the world to see. But exposure in phase one runs deeper than that. A touch of psychology here. This is the phase where the camera itself feels like a threat. Our primitive brain is constantly scanning for danger to keep us alive. Your nervous system does not know the difference between a camera that is pointed directly at your face, or a predator who wants to bite out your jugular and end your survival. It fires the same alarms. Heart rate up, cortisol spiking, thoughts racing, voice tightening. Your brain is running ancient software on modern problems. Our modern minds use these same evolutionary abilities to endlessly analyze how others perceive us, ruminate on social threats that may or may not exist, and create elaborate negative narratives about ourselves before a single frame is ever captured. Psychologist Dr. Russ Harris describes these as private experiences in his book, The Confidence Gap. The thoughts, memories, images, emotions, and sensations that run on in a loop inside of us. In any combination, they are more than enough to keep you frozen. In any combination, they're more than enough to keep you stuck. And the cruel irony here is that in phase one, the more intelligent and self-aware you are, the harder it actually hits, because your brain is sophisticated enough to run the entire simulation before you ever even press record. So typically your mind snaps to a specific person or group of people in your life and wonders, what are they going to think? It imagines every comment, every judgment, every way you might look or sound or come across. And then in an act of self-preservation, it decides, before a single frame is captured, that the risk is too high. So what do most people do? They enter into what I call preparation purgatory. The shallow habits cleverly disguised as productivity that are really just distractions from the uncomfortable actions that need to be taken. I have even amazed myself with my own avoidance. I will have a critical task looming over me and think, you know what? Now seems like the perfect time to move the fridge so that I can clean the dust that is collected underneath it. The excuses we manufacture to avoid the real work can be genuinely impressive. You research gear, you rewrite scripts, you rearrange your studio, you watch more YouTube videos. You tell yourself you will start when everything is perfect. But perfect never comes. Like all worthy pursuits, phase one is the hardest. Getting started is the hardest. There's much to do, much to learn, and significant resistance to overcome. The only way out of preparation purgatory is through. The same way a phobia is treated through gradual, deliberate exposure to the thing that triggers the fear, camera confidence is built by sitting in front of the camera before you feel ready, pressing record before you feel confident, and then proving to your nervous system that through repeated experience that the camera is not a threat to your existence. The goal in phase one is not to make a perfect video. The goal is to begin making videos with the resources you have to the best of your ability, with consistency. Each rep is gonna teach your nervous system to lower those alarms we talked about. Each one is a deposit into your confidence account. Each one proves that you can do hard things and push past your own self-limiting beliefs. All of this while making the iterative quality improvements that are going to bolster your camera confidence more than any amount of consuming content ever could. You are probably in phase one if you have never published a video or have published fewer than 10, if you delete most of your takes before anyone sees them, if you spend more time preparing to record than actually recording, if the thought of pressing record creates a physical anxiety response, if you always find a way to kick the can down the road and tell yourself that you will start when the gear is better or the lighting is right or the script is perfect. The way out of phase one is imperfect action. You do not wait until you feel ready. You act until you become ready. You expose yourself to yourself first by confronting the shallow tasks, the fake productivity that have been standing in for real action. Then you expose your brand and your message to the world through imperfect, published videos. Done consistently, this begins to dissolve the initial fears of exposure and builds the compounding momentum that's going to carry you into phase two. The fear you conjure up in preparation of taking action is always worse than the action itself. Now that the phase one rocket has lifted off and you have escaped the gravitational pull of fear-based resistance, you are entering the atmosphere of phase two. A good analogy here is going to the gym for the first time. You overcome the mental obstacles. You walk in with some fear of the unknown, like a new kid at a new school. You're now in the new environment. You're getting your bearings. You're learning the fundamentals. You're figuring out what makes for a good lift session, how to track your progress. After some time, it becomes more rhythmic. You learn to genuinely enjoy the process. You start making real progress and you start thinking about it less and less. Phase 2 works the same way. You've done the reps, you have broken through the initial terror. Now you can sit in front of a camera and talk without crippling fear in your voice. It becomes more routine. You're growing more and more competent in publishing content. What's interesting is that most of my clients absolutely love phase 2 when they first arrive here. They feel liberated. They have a new playground to experiment in. They're learning new skills, tech stacks, production techniques, delivery frameworks. They've escaped that phase 1 crippling fear and finally have taken action, and it feels addictive. Many describe creating content and writing script as therapeutic. It gives them an outlet to articulate their thoughts, their passion, their expertise. They can finally shout from the rooftops what they've kept compartmentalized inside. It feels like coloring outside the lines for many professionals who work may be more complex and technical. Work starts to feel like play. But like anything in life, the novelty begins to wear off. Just like that new gym or that new routine, the excitement fades and the demands of everyday life start pulling your attention back. This is where the initial burst of creative energy begins to taper. And this is the most critical juncture in the entire journey of these 3 phases. This is where you separate the committed from the hobbyist. Because now you still have to show up. You still have to create and commit to the process. You still have to push yourself to improve every component of your craft. Delivery, systems, tech, post-production, even when it no longer feels exciting, and some days not even enjoyable. This is what I call the middle. The middle sucks. The middle is where most aspiring creators burn out or quit. What keeps you moving through phase 2 is this. Do not allow yourself to become bored. You have this ongoing challenge of delivering on camera. When the challenge exceeds your current skill level, that's where anxiety sets in because you are lacking competency somewhere that allows you to achieve and overcome that challenge. But when your skill level exceeds the challenge, that's where boredom sets in. Both are very dangerous. Okay, the key is into mental growth with your skills towards that challenge. Always pushing yourself just far enough outside of your comfort zone to stimulate your mind without overwhelming it. James Clear calls this the aggregation of marginal gains. The philosophy of finding tiny improvements in everything you do so that the compound effect builds over time. Keep learning, keep refining your systems, keep reducing friction in your workflow. Treat the process like a game where you are always leveling up. When you feel skillful and challenged, simultaneously you're going to feel engaged, you're going to feel creative, and most importantly, you're going to feel fulfilled. There's also a second dimension of phase 2 that a lot of creators never discuss, and this is critical in building true camera confidence. When phase 1 is executed successfully and the early parts of phase 2 are done with intention, you have established frameworks around your creative process. You've built a personal regimen that grants you more freedom within your creative structures. By reducing the practical components that lead to things like decision fatigue and burning mental energy on practical elements like setting up, ideation, thought capture, it allows for more creative capacity to start creating content, and you can focus on the things that actually matter, that stimulate the art component. The art of your delivery, the value you're providing, and how to represent yourself on camera in the most authentic way possible. This allows creativity to take on a life of its own instead of trying to force creativity into your busy life. So the more you reduce daily life maintenance and shallow tasks, the greater the bandwidth becomes available for creative expression and imagination. This is the part that becomes so addictive. This is where you become your most authentic self on camera and your confidence can truly flourish. The early part of the journey is the hardest. As the fundamentals become rhythmic and you no longer have to consciously think about the mechanics, something shifts. You start to realize that you don't want to keep up this early camera persona that most people start out with. It doesn't really match who you actually are. The performance will start to feel a bit hollow, and this is where the real breakthroughs start to happen. At first, your delivery feels mechanical because you're still performing a version of yourself rather than actually being yourself. You are reciting rather than communicating in that kind of one-on-one capacity that you need to. And no matter how much you practice the script or adjust the setup, you can't access the naturalness that you see in the creators that you admire. The shift that moves you from phase 2 into phase 3 is a fundamental reorientation away from yourself and toward the person you are talking to. Away from performance and toward genuine human connection. So I'm not trying to overcomplicate it, but just think about the best conversation you have recently had. It's one where you completely forgot about how you were coming across because you were just so locked in on what the other person was saying or what you were passionately articulating to them and what you wanted to help them understand. And this is what that second component within phase 2 is trying to get you to do. Not be performative, but to be authentic in your connection and in your delivery to a single person. The tool I give every client at this stage is what I call the one-person principle. When you sit down to record, you're not talking to an audience, you are talking to one specific person. The exact person who needs to hear what you're about to say. You know their frustration, you know what they have already tried, and when you speak to that one person with genuine intention to help them, the self-consciousness in yourself starts to dissolve on its own. You're probably in phase 2 if you have gotten the practical workflows of consistently publishing content down, but the published content still might feel a bit performative or mechanical. If you get positive feedback, but something still feels like inauthentic, a little off to yourself. If your delivery is technically fine, but you're not generating the sense of flow and fulfillment and creative euphoria that you might have heard about or that you were expecting. If you've hit a plateau where more practice is not producing more improvement. So the way through phase 2 is the shift that separates the small channels from legacy brands on YouTube. When you move from self-focused to value-focused, from performing to connecting, from speaking to an imaginary crowd to speaking to just one person at a time, the person who needs you, that's where the shift takes place. But you first have to get through the early phases of getting the technical, mechanical, decision fatigue out of your brain, off your plate, so that you can focus on that next level of okay, I've got the mechanics of delivery down, now I can learn to speak more authentically because I'm focused on the value I'm giving to this single person that I am passionately speaking to. If any of this is resonating with you and you want to go deeper, I work with industry professionals just like you one-on-one to build camera confidence, establish a minimal professional studio setup, and launch a video-based personal brand. I'll link all the details in the description below. But now let's talk about phase 3. Phase 3 is what people actually mean when they say they want camera confidence. In phase 3, the camera all but disappears. You're not performing for it, you're not even aware of it a lot of the time. You're just worried about capturing the thoughts. You've done enough reps and you've made enough content. The mindset has shifted and the self-consciousness has been replaced by something else entirely. Genuine connection and the creative flow of articulating your message to your audience. Psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi calls this flow state, the experience of being so fully absorbed in what you're doing that nothing else exists. Time distorts, effort disappears, the work feels effortless, even if it's not. In phase 3, your communication becomes magnetic because you're not trying to be magnetic. You are just present. You're speaking, sharing your genuine belief with someone who genuinely needs it. It's interesting because all of the tactical things that consumed people in preparation purgatory, the gear, the lighting, the perfect script, are literally the last thing on their minds now. They're just part of the workflow. Sure, they want high quality output, but they care far more about their message their values, and consistently serving their audience and putting their message out there, that they would rather create 4 times the content on an iPhone imperfectly and connect deeply with their audience than deal with the production delays chasing a standard of perfection that was never the point in the first place. So this is where everything kind of inverts, and you totally relinquish the self-centeredness and desire for perfection of your content and your own self-perception, and you focus entirely on impact, on purpose, and on contribution. Business growth comes as a consequence of the value and authenticity you are putting into the world rather than something you are grasping for. So this is where we enter the domain of self-mastery on camera. And here's what I want you to understand about phase 3, is that it's not a destination. It is a daily practice. Self-mastery can only ever be pursued. Even the most experienced communicators on earth have moments of phase 1 anxiety when the stakes are high or the situation is unfamiliar. The difference is they have built the reps and the mindset to move through faster. They know how to collapse the timeline. What takes a beginner 20 takes now takes a master 1 or 2. And they care more about getting everything out that they want to say than chasing rigid technical perfection. You are probably in phase 3 if your best take happens when you stop thinking and start creating on impulse. If you occasionally lose track of time while recording, if people tell you that your content feels authentic and trustworthy, if the camera starts to feel more like a conversation partner and less like an adversary, if creating and being on camera starts to feel more like something you were called to than a task, you are well into phase 3. The way to stay in phase 3 is to protect the conditions that create it. A clear message anchored in the one-person principle, a simple setup that removes friction and conserves your psychic creative energy, and the daily practice of showing up even when you do not feel like it. Because consistent action builds the undeniable proof to yourself that you are becoming who you are dedicated to becoming. Your true worth as a creator is determined by how much more you give in value than you take. When you publish your work with intention, persistence, and a commitment to continuous improvement, you increase the probability of reaching the people who genuinely need what you have to offer. The world needs more creators who commit to a vision, develop themselves, and share their knowledge and lived experience with others. More entrepreneurs, more camera-confident voices that distribute valuable ideas that impact and improve the lives of other people they serve. This is the true unlock of phase 3, where impact, purpose, and business growth converge. Where mastery is not a finish line, but a standard that you hold yourself to every single day. Now that you know the 3 phases, let me give you the most direct path through each one. For phase 1, the operating principle is radical simplicity. Sound, light, lens. Your iPhone and a window, that is enough. Remove every excuse between you and the record button. Start before you're ready. Set the minimum standard to 1 video per week on YouTube. Each one is going to train your nervous system. Each one proves that you can do hard things. By video 10, you will feel different than you did at video 1. And by video 50, you're not even going to recognize the person that you were when you started. Plus, audiences love an evolution. They love to see somebody's beginning and perfect journey and how they can evolve over time. They get to feel like they're part of your hero's journey when it comes to creating video content. For phase 2, the operating principle is the one-person principle. Before every recording session, take a moment to visualize who you're speaking to. The person who's struggling with a specific problem and needs to understand a specific insight. Then hit record. You talk to that person, and beyond your delivery, stay curious. Keep learning one new thing each week, one new tool, one new technique, one new framework. The aggregation of marginal gains is what keeps phase 2 engaging long enough to break through to phase 3. Boredom is the enemy. Growth is the antidote. For phase 3, the operating principle is flow protection. You want to minimize the decision fatigue by being systemic and consistent with what we learned in phase 1 to build your creative workflows as much as possible so that it protects your creative bandwidth in your life and business. The better your systems and discipline in your daily habits, the more readily you can enter creative flow before you even press record. Exercise, meditate, journal, whatever moves you from inside your head to inside the work. The neurochemistry of flow state is real. Endorphins, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, all releasing simultaneously. You can prime that state before you ever sit down. When you do, the camera becomes a conduit, not an obstacle. And always operate from a spirit-driven mindset, creating content to fulfill your purpose and relinquishing the obsession with outcomes. Your focus is on value, on the one-person principle, and everything else just becomes a consequence of that. Here's the honest truth about camera confidence that nobody wants to tell you. You are likely not going to ever feel ready. You don't just wake up one day and feel ready and fully confident. You look back at how far you've come and how much you've grown. Feeling ready is exactly that, a feeling. But feelings are not prerequisites for action. They are byproducts of it. What I mean is you don't want to wait until you feel confident and then act. You act and then confidence follows. The 3 phases, exposure, competence, and mastery, are not a straight line. They are a practice, a commitment, a decision you make every single day to show up messily before you feel ready and just trust that the work will improve iteratively and teach you more than preparation ever could. I've directed over 5,000 on-camera performances, physicians, surgeons, founders, executives, people who, despite their talent and expertise, were terrified to press record for the first time, but they're now building brands, attracting patients, and changing lives through their content. None of them waited until they were ready. Every single one of them committed to the process of phase 1, of phase 2, and of phase 3, and now they get to operate with confidence on camera. They focus on their passion, on mastering their craft, and the content operates on their behalf. It can do the same for you, and now it's your turn. If you know which phase you're in right now, drop it in the comments. If it's phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3, I'll reply and tell you the one next thing that you should focus on. And if this resonated, subscribe. I publish every week on camera confidence, creative marketing, and the psychology of showing up powerfully in your work and in your life. And if you want the weekly framework delivered straight to your inbox, join Creator Legion. It's free and is linked below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.